From the News Channel 5 Network, this is SportsLine.
Hey there, SportsLine on your television. Steve Layman here with you. Glad you are here with us on this Tuesday night on News Channel 5. Plus, you can dive into a bunch of things tonight. We'll get to a lot with the Titans, that's for sure, coming up. Of course, Titans on the field today for organized team activities. A noteworthy moment today. We'll hear from some sound from them as well. But also some college baseball notes out there. Obviously, the final 16 is set. A lot of the top 16 teams advance, but Tennessee, #1 team in the country, will not face a top 16 seed in the Super Regionals this weekend. They get Notre Dame, who knocked off #16 seed Georgia Southern, and then Texas Tech to get out of the Statesboro Regional. So it'll be Tennessee and Notre Dame, and we do have a schedule for that best-of-3 Super Regional this weekend in Knoxville, and it is as follows. Game 1, Friday night, 6 o'clock Eastern, 5 o'clock Central Time. Then Saturday, Game 2, that one is scheduled for 2 Eastern, 1 Central. And if they need it, Game 3 will be on Sunday. No time set yet for that. That'll depend on kind of how the whole weekend shakes out and when games are going to be. But Tennessee set to play another Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And one of the things that we heard Tony Vitello say this on the program last night when we listened to what they had to say after wrapping up the regional championship on Sunday. One of the things this Tennessee team has been really good about all season long is going out, taking care of business, then immediately going back to work. The job of recovery and preparation and getting ready to follow the same routine week in and week out to mimic their success. And they've done it week in and week out. All season long, people have wondered with this Tennessee team, when's the magic going to rub off? When are they going to hit a slump? When is the pressure going to become overwhelming? When is this going to stop, essentially? And I think that grounded nature of just going back and finding that routine each week has helped. Baseball is a sport of routine. A lot of guys do the same thing in terms of when they, put the stirrups on and how they put the pants on and everything like that, to what you do before the game, your batting practice routine, to what you do throughout the week, what you eat, all those sort of things. Baseball is a very superstitious, routine-oriented game. And I think this Tennessee team has proven that they just follow the routine very well. And they don't get too high. They haven't had many opportunities to get too low, but when they faced adversity, they've usually responded very well to it. And when you look at what they've done in the past few weeks, this is when the pressure is really mounted. And all those voices out there that wondered, can Tennessee keep on doing this? Are they really the best team, not just in the country this season, but maybe one of the greatest teams we've ever seen assembled? Those voices kept getting louder and louder, and you wondered, okay, where's this? What is going to happen with this team? Well, they're maybe playing their best baseball right now. They had a 23-game winning streak earlier in the season, but right now they're in the middle of their second longest winning streak of the year at 11 games. And it hasn't exactly been Cupcake City through that stretch. I mean, the easiest game they played was against Belmont, which was the OVC champion. Then they went and swept a series at Mississippi State, who, while they were down this year, is the defending national champion. They went to Hoover, won the SEC tournament, best league in America, won the conference tournament in 4 straight games, and they were dominant in that tournament. And they come back to Knoxville for the regional, and they win 3 in a row. So it's now 11 in a row overall, 56-7 on the season. And you go right back into that routine. And I think that's one thing if you want to look at this schedule. I mean, obviously, the biggest thing is that you're home. You're the #1 overall seed. You're at home. The crowd in Knoxville, as we've seen, has been absolutely electric, and that's fantastic. But when you think about Tennessee, the schedule sets up for them for the routine. They've played on Fridays just about every day all season long to start a series, to start a weekend. And that's what they get again. They won the regional on Sunday. They didn't have to go to Monday. So this team has set themselves up to get back into their normal routine. Preparation for the week, game 1 on Friday, game 2 on Saturday, if they have to, game 3 on Sunday. And not to look too far ahead, but if they do the job that everyone expects them to do this weekend at home against Notre Dame, then they go to the College World Series where game 1 is on Friday. And you kind of keep that routine going as you move in to Omaha and what you have to do out there. So Tennessee's in a very advantageous position, and you got to love that because the pressure is on. And as we've said multiple times on this program, if they do not win at all, it is going to be seen as a failure by this team, by their fan base, by a lot of people around college baseball, because that's how dominant this Tennessee team has been throughout the course of the year. In terms of the final 16 as a whole, people talk a little bit about Tennessee's struggles of the weekend. They won all the games, but they had to battle from behind in the last 2 games. Didn't hit quite as well, didn't defend quite as well, didn't have the pitching, at least on the starting end, that they've had it pretty much the entire regular season. Well, that's what this time of year is. Everybody struggles. And you've got to find a way to win. And Tennessee did, going away essentially in both of those games. Meanwhile, number 2, Stanford, had to battle through the losers bracket. Had to win in a walk-off last night against Texas State in the final game. Winner take all to move on. Number 3, Oregon State, had to fight and scrap its way past Vanderbilt to get through. That's the type of stuff you see time and time again. Virginia Tech had it pretty easy. Texas A&M had it pretty easy, though they got a battle with with TCU, but they managed to win in 3 straight games. But then you look at the rest of those seeded teams. Not everybody's so fortunate. Number 6, Miami, bounced, didn't even get to the regional final. Number 7, Oklahoma State, toppled by Arkansas. They're done. The Hogs move on. East Carolina, Texas, they did their job. They managed to get through relatively unscathed. East Carolina did lose a game to Coastal, but they got through, so the 8-9 matchup is set there. Number 10, North Carolina, won the regional, but lost a game to get through. And you just got a bunch of other teams. Southern Miss had to come back through the losers bracket to beat LSU twice in the regional final. Louisville had to come back through the losers bracket to beat Michigan twice and get some help from the umpires to get through. And you had other teams that, weren't as lucky there. Auburn was the only seed of the bottom 4 of the top 16 that moved on. 13, 15, 16, all done. So 5 of your seeded teams lost at home in the opening weekend in regional play. So it's tough this time of year. I mean, it's baseball. You get a great pitching performance, you don't get a good pitching performance. I mean, that can be doom right there. And while it's not single elimination, your backs go against the wall the moment you lose. And there's a pressure that you deal with there too. So we shall see. But Tennessee now set for that super regional against Notre Dame. Again, game 1, Friday night, 5 Central from over there in Knoxville. Game 2, Saturday at 1. Game 3, Sunday, if necessary, for a chance to get back to Omaha and the College World Series for a 2nd consecutive year. Meanwhile, here in Nashville, Titans OTAs into their 3rd week. Mandatory mini camp comes next week, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And once again today, it's the story that just won't slow down, mainly because Treylon Burks can't seem to get up to speed. Today, the Titans' number one pick of this draft, and a guy they're counting on being a number 1 type of receiver for them at some point, if not right from the start this year, he was absent from practice again today. And while we didn't get a specific reason why he was absent today, Mike Vrabel saying only that he was unavailable, one of the big things that came out today was Rob Moore told us that he's been struggling with asthma. It's kind of been a mystery. We knew he has struggled with his conditioning. He hasn't been able to finish some of the workouts that they've had. We all knew that, but we didn't know the reason why. Now we have a little bit more of a clue straight from his wide receiver coach's mouth. But it begs the question, what kind of a long-term impact will this have for Treylon Burks? It's obviously disrupting his offseason as a rookie. Is this going to be a hindrance for him when he gets into training camp? I mean, you need him out there. When you start putting the pads on and going every day, you need him out there. You also have to worry when you don't train properly in the offseason, especially with a wide receiver. How many times have we seen it, specifically here in Tennessee, where a guy shows up and immediately it's that soft tissue stuff. It's the hamstring that goes. I mean, both Julio Jones and A.J. Brown had to deal with it last year. Corey Davis had previously dealt with it. Kenny Britt back in the day dealt with it. We've seen a lot of that from Titans wide receivers around the league. But when you don't get the work in the offseason, it makes it more difficult when you get thrown to the fire and you got to go then in training camp. And so you got to wonder about that part of it for Treylon Burks. And then you've got all the pressure that's on him because so many people expect him to come in and fill the void of A.J. Brown. So I think it's real to have some concern here. It may be completely overblown. We might get to the season and think back, man, why did we talk about that story every day? It meant nothing in the offseason. It's possible. And I think when you start talking about veterans in this situation, you can do that more readily. But when you're talking about a guy that legitimately they traded away their youngest, most explosive offensive weapon as a pass catcher and moved up to get you got to be able to perform. You got to come in right away and able to help out. And that's the reality for Treylon Burks. Everybody expects that from him. And he's got to live up to it. And hopefully he's not sucking air as he's trying to do it. So those are the questions we have still about Treylon Burks. And we'll maybe get a little bit better feel next week when we get a couple of days to be out there to watch them through minicamp, where they will go a little bit more full speed. There'll be a little bit more of a practice-like feel. We'll get an idea where he's at then, hopefully. But you're not really going to know until they get back for training camp. And you may not really know until they get on the field and see exactly how he can perform in a game-like situation. But that's the story with Treylon Burks right now for the Titans. That was a big story again today, maybe the biggest story that came out of it. Meanwhile, you look at last year's early picks, and this is part of the reason, again, you put so much pressure on Burks, is last year the top guys really didn't do much for this team. Caleb Farley tore his ACL, so he just wasn't a factor. And by the way, he looks good. He's added a few pounds. Mike Vrabel said today that he got into the books all offseason as he was rehabbing to try to know exactly where he's supposed to be when he does get cleared. He's just limited right now in what he can do. Absolutely no contact for him. But he does look like he's moving around well. And so I think there's a real hope that he can come in and compete for the job that he's expected to win when training camp begins. Dylan Radin's the second-round pick. Looks better. He's working pretty much only at right tackle right now for this team. And it would be great for this team if he can win that job, because he was drafted to be the right tackle last year. And he's going to have the opportunity, I think, in training camp to try to win the job. And it's going to be up to him to do it. So a lot of eyes on the young guys with this Titans team right now. Our phone lines are open tonight, 737-7767, the number, if you'd like to join the conversation. When we come back, we'll get thoughts from Jonathan Hutton on this Titans team. Midway point, little beyond in the organized team activity phase of the offseason. We'll hear your thoughts as well. Titans players and coaches on the way throughout the course of the program tonight. Talking football here in the summer on SportsLine on News Channel 5+.